Yeah, we're live.
Cool.
Excellent. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Phoenix Talks. Today with me here is Andrew Funk, who's a friend of mine from Barcelona. Well, he's not from Barcelona himself, but he's been there for quite a while. Andrew founded and leads a startup called Homeless Entrepreneur. Empowers homeless people by providing them with the tools, the resources, the network, the love, and a holistic program. I would like to introduce a little bit why I invited you, because we've been talking about this for quite a while, that we would have this conversation even before we even started with Phoenix Talks. And the idea about it was that even though we seem to be doing something quite different, there are a lot of things that overlap in what we do and also what we try to achieve. And I figured this would be a good topic for conversation, because we often compartmentalize a little bit issues in society, and we say this is an issue that is being solved by those people or attempted to be solved by those people, and we're doing this, and we can't really find ways to work together. And what I found most interesting is a conversation we had a while ago, is that you said, you know, a lot of refugees or a lot of migrants are in fact homeless. And that reminds me actually that the word homeless, it doesn't say houseless, right? We're talking about homeless. And in Spanish, the word is hogar, no? It's not house. So it's really about what a home is to people. So would you like to explain a little bit what you guys do at Homeless Entrepreneur, and then we'll continue on that?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting us to participate. I think the last time we had a conversation in person was at Buenas Amigas with another woman. And our conversations are always interesting. Normally, you're in another country most of the time. So Homeless Entrepreneur is an association currently that helps homeless people become active working citizens, focused on purpose. And we just turned in first touristic hostel into a social hostel. So we're working on that model as well. And basically what we do is we want to help. It's between 20 to 50% of the homeless population, depending on how you look at it, that want to work and be active citizens. So we've been doing this for over 4 years now. And as you said, refugees are considered homeless under the framework of 𝗵𝗵cie. And we basically work in different ways. If you look at it, the first thing that we do, we set up a helpline as well, so people can call us, so we can listen to their stories, understand what they need. And then we created a program called 𝗵𝗵cie𝗲𝗍, which is to help them communicate, to connect them to resources. And then those that fit in our program have the opportunity to enter our program, and also with housing now. Right. So it's really about identifying people that need tools, resources, and network to become active citizens again. And that's what we do. We have a modest reach, although we have a large audience, and we've currently helped 15 people become success stories, if you will. That's in the sense they have a job and they're paying for their own rent and, you know, living a quote unquote normal life, whatever that means now. And then we've helped more than 57 homeless people improve their life. So our goal for the next year is helping 100 people, and we're in the process of raising about 400,000 euros to make that happen. And so they have the housing model and also the program that goes along with it. And opportunities like working with your organization, anything that we can do, if it's dissemination, thinking about how we can improve and finding these common points of interest. Because at the end of the day, a refugee is a homeless person, and a homeless person is a refugee in their own city. So we have to find ways to come up with better solutions together.
I would like to go into that, because that is something that I think is really something that has often been missed. You know, the whole concept of a refugee is a homeless person, and a homeless person a refugee in their own city. I think that is. I think that is.
Motherfucker. Teacher, I have a question.
I think we're being.
Estoy cagando.
Troleado puto. Estoy cagando el otro.
Ah, okay.
Capo,
Miguel, mi pana Miguel.
I think we're being bombed. That's a new one. Well, look at that. The things you those are new things. All right. I never had that before. Hang on, I need to unmute you. It doesn't really work.
I'm going to say something. A todas las personas que han entrado, os deseo lo mejor porque realmente estáis muy aburridos y das pena. Suerte con tu vida, y los que están siguiéndonos y quieren escuchar, vamos a dedicarnos a nuestra labor. Ya está. Okay, there you go. Sorry, I just wanted to say a thank you message to all these people that are bored.
You know, this is actually one of the things that have never happened to us before. Actually, it's quite nice to have, you know,
a little bit of excitement.
Some music, bit of excitement, yeah. And they seem to be quite bored. It's true. But actually, the funny thing about it is that this is a criticism that a lot of people had about Zoom. You know, that you can't really monitor this. We can put a password on it,
but it's okay. I mean,
it's like that. It's like,
I mean, to think about it, when you democratize things, then you give everyone the right to have a voice, and then everybody shows, you know, a little bit of who they are. And when people have that moment to shine, like this, they share the taste of music they have, and a little bit of
but I've learned my lesson to enable the waiting room always now. It's quite unusual though. Anyway, so right, coming back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Because now I have Facundo Cabral is trying to join. Anyway, let's go back. So we were talking about this really interesting conversation that is about stopping to call something one thing and another thing, because that really creates division. I mean, even calling someone a homeless person creates this stigma around it, and this whole idea about what that person is. You know, there's the word homeless immediately comes to mind to many people is dirty, useless, doesn't want to work, or is drug addicts. You know, all these really harsh ways of looking at it, and a lot of the times with refugees and especially asylum seekers, it's a very similar story. And a lot of refugees and asylum seekers actually end up on the streets, but that's not really what I wanted to talk about. I really wanted to talk about the concept of the mental, the psychological aspect of what it means to be a homeless person in that section, and what it means to be a migrant and be a homeless person in the same way. What do you feel about that? What is your perception?
Which aspect?
Well, you said, for example, to say that a refugee is a homeless person, and a homeless person is a refugee in their own city.
Exactly. I mean, for me, it's ironic to see welcome refugees and like a homeless person sleeping underneath it, right? This happened in Barcelona City Hall. You know, homelessness for me is a situation that someone can be in, and they can always turn it into a lifestyle. Right. So it's a situation that can become a lifestyle if you don't take care of it for whatever reason, or if you're not able to change your situation. So I also think that, you know, homelessness can also be a state of mind. The images that exist when you think about homelessness represent the minority, because it's easier to get people to donate if you have someone that looks completely helpless. So that's when the assistance comes in, which really represents about 16%. Of the people in that situation. So the main reason people are homeless is because they either lost their job, they had a break with family ties, or they're not making enough money. And I'm reading a book right now. It's quite interesting. It's called Changing Poverty, Changing Policies.
Okay.
And, you know, the latest thing that I was reading was about getting women into the workforce has reduced poverty. Right. And participation in that sense. And it talked a lot about families, right? So when people, if you're not in a married family, if you're a single family, you're more likely to be poor. And also, basically, if you're living together but the family's not married, the chances of those people being poor is greater as well. But it's interesting because if you look at it from a contractual sense, poverty takes place when you have no contracts. So you can't pay for the lawyer, you don't understand the law, and you fall through it. And when it comes to refugees, they have no rights. I mean, they get like a pink card, right?
Right.
And even if they have family in Spain, they can't stay with that family, I think, for the first 6 months. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's maybe 6, 9, 12 months. I don't know. It doesn't matter. More than one day, in my opinion, doesn't make sense. But it's interesting to see what people think about it. We're always fighting to change the image. I mean, my ultimate goal would be when you look for homelessness or refugee, you see people working, smiling, trying to solve problems, instead of the same old pictures of people from Africa on boats or people dying on the shores. Right.
Well,
so I mean,
absolutely. And I think the name homeless entrepreneur is also something that, I mean, we in a lot of ways I learned. You started Homeless Entrepreneur before we started Project Phoenix, and I learned a lot from you and how to think about this topic, and the idea that presenting people as entrepreneurs, not because they want to start their own business necessarily, but simply because of the situation they're trying to get out of, be it
the spirit. It's
exactly, it's a mentality. Yeah, it's a mentality, and that's actually, as you said as well many times, is that someone who's gone through homelessness, or someone who's been a refugee or a migrant, even in a broader sense, often has a much more entrepreneurial spirit and a much more problem-solving mindset, and those are people we can use in society more than anything. And that's why I think it's interesting to look at it that way. And we also said a lot of times when we were talking about your project that the best way for people to change this opinion, the stigma that they feel, is to see people, to see them, to be visible, right? So you do a lot of visibility and awareness
it's a challenge
events.
It's a challenge. The communication is an important aspect, right? Because they always say that homeless people are invisible, and I always say they're not invisible, we're blind, because they're in front of our faces. So the issues are hidden, or it can be strategically done, like what's done in Finland. They've done a better job than most countries, but they still strategically position in a place that people don't run across it. So it seems like it doesn't exist. We have to find a way, instead of subsidizing what people lack or don't do well, we should reward them for what they do well. And that psychologically, it makes a world of difference. I mean, if someone gives you more money for the more incapable you are of doing something, or if they're paying you for what you can do well. So then it promotes people to actually add no value, because the less value they can add, the more they get paid from the state. And I don't know what you think about the basic income, basic minimum income that came out in Spain a few days ago. And, I was given thoughts as to what I'd say about it, but I ended up keeping my mouth shut, because I'm not too sure about the policy itself, because we have to promote people to participate. If it includes ways to get people to be active, I think it will be great. But if it gives them enough comfort for them not to want to do anything else because the options are worse, then I think it could have long-term negative effects on society.
Right. It's a topic that is, I think, very
debatable.
Interesting to talk about. Well, it's not just debatable. It is being debated, of course, across the world, and I think it's a very brave move for Spain to try it, and I think it's worth a try. I think that the objections or the criticism of it that you just mentioned is widespread. However, I do think that often, and I think you've come across this as well, some people are in such a desperate situation that there's no way for them to even entertain the thought of becoming contributing citizens, and giving them that nudge and giving them the opportunity to come back to that and say, like, here's something we believe in you, and we believe in you as a human being. You know, you can start again, and with that little bit of money you can start over, and which would then again motivate a lot of people to give back. Of course there will always be people who take advantage of that and will not do anything, but I think that in general,
like insurance, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's minimizing risk, right? Yeah.
Minimizing risk.
I mean, from my perspective, I mean, for example, what's riskier for Spain? More people below, living in poverty, that have to do illegal activity to survive,
right?
Or giving them some kind of support. So from a policy level, I imagine that investing, I can't remember how much it was, how many billion, but investing that is seen as a way to reduce possible risk in society and also improve it. The only question I would have is, how do you improve the policy to get people to make sure that they're active, right? Because it's a challenge. What's for sure is that if people are using it, it's because it's the best option for them, or at least the best perceived option. So that also says a lot about what the market's offering people if they don't see or perceive those opportunities. So I think it's an opportunity for us to improve as well, to see how we can come up with better options. As a migrant, an immigrant, or any person really, you know, there's that balance of doing something you love, right? And getting paid enough to keep doing that. And the question is, at what point do people give up their dreams and accept for something lesser? And when does that become the norm? And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm American, you know, the whole dream about, you know, doing what you want to do, at least, you know, fighting for that. And I think I have a lot of respect for anyone that's willing to put their life at risk to change their life. And if they're moving from one country, it's normally not because they want to, right? It's not like vacation. So anyone that criticizes people that have to change countries for their life, I have a hard time conversing with, because just on a humanitarian level, it's necessary. We have to find ways to improve society, and the things that you guys are doing are different situations, but at the end of the day, you know, people are trying to find their place in society, and it's important.
I think we do something very similar in a very similar way, and that is the key thing that I would always say, that what we do with Project Phoenix and is actually not so much trying to train or help or do something in that sense. It's not really that at all. People have their skills and talents and potential. It's not about us helping or supporting someone. They don't really need that. What they do need is access.
Market access.
Market access, network access. You know, it's like you come to a new country. Even for us, if I'm moving to a different country, I have to build up my network again. It's a lot easier for me because I'm accepted as in the places that I've moved to. I'm always immediately accepted as not one of them, but as someone who could function in society. I'm not being looked at funnily. I'm not being discriminated. I'm not, well, not in any meaningful degree, at least. And I can always, you know, find my way around. But for someone who doesn't speak the language, or speaks the language but has a very different cultural perspective, or is being looked at, is being shunned, is being discriminated against, they don't know anyone. They're always looked at in the same way as, or often in similar ways as a homeless person, as someone who's, you know, probably not very useful for society, probably going to steal my job, probably doing this, you know. Where are they from? Are they, you know, criminals? Are they terrorists? Are they, you know, all these things come to mind for the general population of local citizens when we're talking about migrants. So for someone to find a job, or for someone to start a business, is infinitively harder when they're a migrant, in the sense that also the word migrant comes to mind. You know, a refugee or an asylum seeker. It makes it infinitively harder. And that's where we can draw a very good parallel between homeless people, and because they're becoming, as you said, refugees in their own city. They used to be form part of that, the norm, but they've been excluded from that, or they've temporarily excluded themselves for that. To come back to it is impossible almost. So what we try to do is to open doors. We use our own networks, our personal and professional networks, to say, hey, have a chat with this guy, have a chat with this woman, you know, talk about your professional development, talk about your personal development, and see where it goes. You know, and I think that's something that you do as well. I have seen a lot of your programs where you reach out to professionals in society, and if you look at your advisory board and all the people that are involved with you, those are all professionals. Those are all people who, you know, can open doors and give access to that market and network. You're muted.
Okay, if you think about all the people that we have to speak with to help one person, it's crazy. Like, you know, I'm speaking with a friend of mine in KPMG in Australia at one moment, and I'm speaking with another friend we're working with in Switzerland, and then London, and then the United States. And it's all about trying to figure out how to improve our model, how to come up with solutions that are scalable and sustainable for the people in the program. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we're just trying to figure out how to improve what we're doing, so that way we can scale it and help more people. Because one thing is helping one person, which is really difficult. Anyone that says, oh, I remember the first time we helped one person, and there was a director of a well-known NGO in Barcelona that made a snide remark on Twitter saying, oh, you've only helped one person. And, you know, to help yourself is difficult. To help another person is extremely difficult. And to help various people and create a model is much more complicated, right? So we're just trying to learn from our mistakes, improve what we're doing, listen, benchmark around the world, and really find a way to find those common nodes, those common points, so we can inspire other people as well. You know, it's a thing. I may not change the world, but I'd like to inspire someone who can do that, or other people as well. So that's what we try to do. And as a result, we have an amazing network. And our main focus right now, we're in the process of turning the association into a foundation. We finally raised the funds to do that. But the agency to register is closed because of coronavirus. So there are always obstacles. And one thing that I would like anyone that's listening to keep in mind is everyone's concerned and scared for their life, or they were at some moment regarding coronavirus, but this crisis will come and go. And the crisis of homelessness and immigration or illegal immigration and the effects that it has is something that's continual, right? So when people filled up the trade show in Barcelona, I was concerned because after that, they're going to throw them back in their own crisis once everyone else is out of the coronavirus. So that's something I think we need to understand. And I really hope it doesn't take like a pandemic to get the general attention of people, to understand that when someone needs help, they really need help, and we need to provide as much support as we can. And then organizations like yours and ours and many others are there to create a framework, so that way it's easier to do that. And that's, in my opinion, that's the main thing. You know, like, how do we join? How do we come up with better solutions together? And ask ourselves, are we solving their problem, or are we solving our problem of existing?
For sure. I was just going to say, actually, lead into the next sort of topic where you know, what is it that we do, and how it's extremely hard to do this without often wanting to put your own mark on things and saying, like, I want to do this, I've always wanted to do it this way. And but it's about actually asking much more about what do you need from us? How can we support you? I mean, the person that we're working with, we call them our fellows. You call your entrepreneurs, I guess.
Homeless entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So we need to and we're trying this more and more, and reach out and say, what is it that you want to achieve with this? How can we actually support you? And of course, also bring on ideas and say, this is, how we work, and this is what we like to achieve. But I think it's a very important mix, and also putting the people we work with on an equal level, and saying, for example, we have we were talking about asylum seekers and illegal, undocumented immigration, and actually we have a comment here from one of our friends from Cyprus, Malvern. He's saying that here in Cyprus, if you're an asylum seeker, it is very difficult to find a place to stay, because if you try to call the numbers of the landlords, they first ask you where you're from, and if you say Africa, they will ask you where you're working. If you say they're not working, they will not give you that place, and this actually leads to homelessness, as he's saying. And I've witnessed this personally. I've met many people in Cyprus who are asylum seekers, who are in the country awaiting their status, and they're homeless. They're literally homeless. They're sleeping rough. They don't have any support system that supports them. And so, one thing leads to another. And as you said, in Spain, for example, the situation is absolutely insane with asylum seekers. When you come to the country, you apply for asylum, and you're giving a temporary, I think it's 3 months, temporary residency, where you are allowed
it's 6 months.
6 months. Okay, 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think the vast majority, or I think 99%, I don't have the statistics, but it's like, are rejected after those 6 months. They're not kicked out of the country. They're not deported. They're given a paper that they've been rejected, and they just go into the streets, and they literally become homeless.
It's purgatory, right?
And then they have to, because then they have to stay 3 years in the country, and after 3 years of being in the country illegally, undocumented, without any support network, without any, or institutionalized at least, essentially being 3 years homeless, then they can get their residency permits, and that's just absolutely insane. And
I know all about that process.
I'm sure you do, yeah.
That 3 months, the 3 years is it's basically a survival. Yeah. If you can survive 3 years, then enjoy your society, kind of thing. Because if you can find a way to survive 3 years with nothing, then you should be able to add some kind of value when we give the opportunity.
Maybe. Yeah. And then they're still being discriminated, but that's another story, of course. I mean, but what Malvern is saying is absolutely true. Is like, being a refugee, going through all that to come to another country, and then arriving and being told, basically you got nothing. It's very tough. And so for someone to come out of that, they don't just need to be motivated, because this is the issue that we're facing a lot of the time. People say, yes, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to do something with you. But it's so much more than that. There's so much trauma and so much, you
also need to be prepared.
Pressure.
I mean, the thing is, if you go to another country with no plan, or you don't know how to plan it, it would be different if people were able to start making contacts in social media, for example, explain their story, like kind of prepare what's going on, so that way they kind of set that up before they go. But when people have to go because of an emergency, that doesn't take place. So I mean, for example, from my case, helping homeless people, I had to go through the situation myself, and then I wanted to help other people, so I had to pave the way for other people. So you need to have someone like me, you, that go through this experience or understand it, and then open up doors for others that are going through it. So I would say that the guy who wrote has a special opportunity to learn from that, and then provide better solutions, pathways, whatever word you want to use, to those that follow his steps. This normally happens in an organic way, I think, like with Italians going to the United States, Chinese. Whenever people travel, you have like the first wave of people that have to go through the hardest aspect, and then they kind of set the ground for their children, friends, family, until that bridge takes place. And there was a video I saw a long time ago, which I used it when I taught, which was it showed ants in the Amazon crossing a river.
Okay.
Right, which is something I never thought, but it was them creating like a raft together, and they were able to survive, which is really cool. So I think if we're able to create the strand of the community that's strong enough, we're able to survive. And if we're able to survive, then the next step really is to thrive. And I think that's really the issue, is how do we go from almost dying or being killed in whatever sense, economically, socially, physically, to surviving that, and then growing with that, and then thriving. And I think, unfortunately, there are many people that are in the survival state of mind.
Right.
And those that are thriving or have that opportunity, in my personal opinion, have an obligation to give other people an opportunity. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, I don't force it upon anyone, but that's what leads me.
Well, I mean, I think all our efforts are made up of personal opinions at the end of the day. I know you're a very headstrong person, and I really respect that. And I think you've managed to do a lot by doing that, by being that way. And I know you've gone through a lot of resistance also in Barcelona from other organizations that, you know, and I think we're not quite going through the same thing, because we're not trying to be provocative. I think you are sometimes, and deliberately so, are being provocative, and I think that is in what you're doing is exactly what your organization is trying to do as well, on top of supporting the people you work with. And I think that's really good. We're not trying to do that. In fact, we're not trying to be controversial, and quite the opposite. In fact, we're trying to be innovative. We're trying to look at different ways, but we also feel resistance a lot of the time from people, from organizations around us that, you know, where we thought, hey, this is going to be a great partnership, and there's just no response. But that has to do more with financing and funding and all these. Exactly. So, you know, money is always an issue, but we're trying to do it differently. We do have a question. It's more for me, but I would like to ask it to you as well. It's from Phyllis. She's asking me about how have we worked with any LGBTQI refugees, and how was the experience? We have, but it's not something that I would say is any different for us, in a sense. I don't think that we've looked at it that way. We often don't even, in a lot of cases, we don't ask, we don't know necessarily the story of the people that we work with in detail. We don't ask for it. If somebody wants to talk about their story, of course, they're, you know, we're here for them to listen to it. But many people don't, and many people don't want to say they're refugees, and we don't actually emphasize it that way anymore. When we started Project Phoenix, we were very much about refugees, entrepreneurship, starting businesses, finding access to finance. We were very much about these sort of blocks, and we've really changed the way we talk about this, and we're still talking about refugees and migrants and this, because we do want to make, you know, we want to explain what we're talking about, but we don't actually use those labels with the people we work with. So we're not saying this refugee who works with us, or we're not trying to say it. At least sometimes I might say it by accident, but I'm actually not trying to say that. There are fellows. So if fellow is, you know, this fellow is from Cameroon, this fellow is from Syria, and they're, you know, doing something that they want to do, and we're supporting them in that by opening up our networks. So if somebody comes with an LGBTQ background, and they want to use that as their story and as their, you know, selling point in a sense of their project, what they're trying to do. So if that's part of what they do and want to continue doing, if they're activists or they want to promote it or want to set up an organization or something like that, then we will, you know, specifically talk about that. But if it's not something they want to specifically address, then we might not even discuss that with them. We are still a small organization, so this might become different in the future. It might become more of an issue where we sort of really talk about LGBTQI issues, or it is like, as an organization, we support specifically and vocally support the community, because we say that, you know, we should, as an organization, make you know, speak up about all issues, and say that, you know, we support LGBTQI refugees, and we believe that this has to end, you know, and we make these kind of statements. And every fellow that signs on to us has to also sign a fellowship agreement where we say, you don't have to, you know, we don't force any beliefs on you, but we do feel that we have a code of, a code of conduct, a code of ethics that we adhere by. And if you're part of our organization, which you become if you're a fellow, then that also becomes part of, what we're, what it's all about. So do you have any experience with that, specifically with the LGBTQ community, or is it not something that you've been really?
I mean, we don't have like a specific program,
Right.
because even if you look at our webpage, people's sexual preference is not an issue for us. And it's not how we target, if you will, the focus of our work. Obviously, telling our story is extremely important. We've had people in our program that are gay, and it's, how much of that they want to bring into their stories is up to them.
Right.
We don't, it really depends on how important their sexuality is to their experience and their story. If they want to connect with the LGBT community, then they can do that, and we'll help them do that. So
yeah.
we don't judge anyone based on their religion, their sexual preference, or anything, but we don't use that as well as a sales point, if you will,
right.
for a program. What we do is we ask people what's important to them, right. which communities support them. I mean, for example, there's a woman named Fatima in Madrid that was looking for support because she was getting kicked out with her family. And so we focused on the Muslim community, and we got more than 20,000 views on Twitter. She raised like 200 and something euros the first day, and she got support, and she was able to get into a home with her family. Perfect, yeah. Because of that. So we do identify people that can relate to the people in a program, but we don't have a specific program for that, because like that can cause more problems in our personal opinion. It's like, if you have to pay thousands, tens of thousands of euros to put handicap signs in a bus, telling people to let sick, elderly, pregnant women and small children to sit down, it's because it's not common sense. Right. So our thing is, we want to educate our community to let those people, be it their preference for sex or their gender or their religion, it's something that they're able to tell their story. So if they're proud because they're Christian or Muslim or Hindu, then we let them tell their story. We don't interfere with that. And I personally think that everybody needs to focus on what adds the most value to their life. And if their sexual preference is really important to them, then they need to find the audience that they can connect with. So we connect people with their audience. The only thing we don't do is we don't promote audiences that we believe are negative, like drugs and anything that's illegal. So in that regard, we don't focus on those areas, but we welcome anyone to participate in the program that wants to be an active working citizen. So their gender or sexual preference for us is completely irrelevant. However, they probably do receive more discrimination. And so depending on their physical appearance, the way they explain things, and their background, that can create certain barriers, and we have to find ways to overcome them and understand the situation that they're in and how we can help.
Well said. I think Phyllis was also quite happy with that answer. Just to add to that as well, is that I've personally have received many referrals and people that have asked me, from the LGBTQI refugee community, like for contacts and help within the network. But that's always been a case of, personal support rather than the professional part of it, or the development part of it. So someone would write me and say, do you know anyone in the LGBTQI community that can help me a little bit find my way around in this new country? And then, of course, that is something that I would personally do. But it's not at the organizational level so much. And I don't think it hasn't been necessary yet to address this in a very concrete way. Normally we do keep these conversations to about 30-40 minutes. We did get bombed, but so we lost about 5 minutes. But you know, is there anything that you'd like to wrap up with? Anything you'd like to say from your perspective? Anything you'd like to pitch for, you know, anything upcoming or?
I mean, there's always something to explain, you know me. So we should be giving a presentation in Catalonian Parliament in June,
Oh, nice.
July in theory. Also, we introduced, if you want, come here. We also, one second, my daughter wants to participate.
Oh, hi. Hello. Oh, she's grown.
Yeah, and also we got a petition accepted in European Parliament with a small political party called Volt from Luxembourg, including our new housing model that's focused on work, active citizenship, and purpose. And we also have the National Helpline, which is actually just opened in England as well. So we're looking to raise funds. If anybody is interested in supporting our organization, we need to raise funds. I'm sure your organization needs support there as well. So I would just tell whoever's listening to think about what our organizations need, and if they can do anything to help us do our work. Our objective is making it sustainable and listening to our audience, and when people have a question or a concern, we deal with it. And it's a challenge, it's not easy, but as long as we know that nothing's perfect and we're adding more value than we're taking away through our work, then these conversations lead to building what we're doing, making it better. So I mean, I remember the first time we met. I remember the conversations we've had. You've seen a lot and how we've grown from there. Absolutely. And I've seen how you guys have grown too. And it's just cool because at the end of the day, we have the same desire to improve the lives of other people. And as we do that, we learn to see what works in trial and error. And normally what seems to be the most sensible place to receive support ends up being the hardest place to receive support. And then something as simple as you supporting our organization when we were doing a solidarity calendar builds into a relationship in which we have organizations that we can support on a deeper level as they go through. So my only thing is thank you and your community for including us. I'm happy to be an advisor as well, to add value where we can. And anything that we can do to add value to your organization and vice versa, the door is always open. And we have no frontiers and borders in our network. So
this is also, you know, what I wanted to say, what I always say at the end of these talks is that, you know, the people we invite for this conversation, we might not have a lot of viewers live, but the conversation doesn't really matter, because the conversation is an introduction. I mean, we've known each other for a while now, but we haven't materialized this, you know, network and this relationship that we could have. And I think that there are a lot of themes and overlapping ideas that we have that actually could make sense to, you know, do together. And when you said that you're going to address the European Parliament or get involved with policy, that is also something that we're very interested in. And I think that if we can actually look at and specifically asylum seekers, which are the most exposed and fragile.
Sorry.
Sorry. Hang on one second. I'm gonna mute you a second. I can't hear myself. So what is, you know, these topics are things that we can actually do together, because if we're talking about asylum seekers and we're talking about action in European Parliament and policy, these are things that coincide, and it's always better to have two voices come together and try to do something together. So in general, the people we invite, we want to bring into our network, and we want to make part of their network. So this is exactly what you've just said and exactly what we want to do. So thank you so much for you know, coming on, talking to me and having this conversation. And I hope it will lead to many more conversations.
I'm sure it will, and I'm more than happy to see how we can work, as we have some people that are asylum seekers that we're supporting as well, and I'm sure they would be very happy to have your support too. So let's continue this conversation offline. My daughter wants to be an active speaker, as she
I
is.
think she's already.
She's there. So no, I just want to thank you. And like I said, the doors are open. If there's anything specific that you think we can do together, let me know.
Perfect.
And
Will
same
do.
from our ways, I think we have a lot to do. And the more we push policy, I think the more we're going to meet in the middle for sure. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks so much, Andrew. See you soon.
All right, take care. Cheers. Bye.